grade. Your next exam is not until April 10th. It's on your syllabus. I've had a few people ask me to talk to me about their grade. We can try to do that. Again, my office hours, if you need to do that, I'll get a pencil and write it down. My office hours are from 11 to 1 on Monday and 11 to 3 on Wednesday in the new architecture building. It's in room 200s, down at the end of the hall on the second floor. There's a whole bunch of us back in there. The receptionist and ask him or her where to find me if you need to talk to me. So that's the best time to get me. Now I'm also here on Fridays. If you make special arrangements with me, I can talk to me on Fridays. Tuesdays and Thursdays are really hard for me to meet you about stuff like that. But there is no extra credit, you know, so there's just too many of you. If everybody did extra credit, taking 1,000 years of grade. I'm sorry I can't do that. Just try to do better. Try to find study partners or something if your study is not working out. But anyway, if you want to come talk to me, that's my office hours. Your final exam is on the syllabus, and it is correctly timed. It is Tuesday the 9th from 10:15 to 12:30 here. So that on your syllabus is correct. Some people already start asking me about when the final exam is. Tuesday, May 9th, 10:15 here. So we're going to start getting into the architecture that's going to be more relevant for what you see day to day when you're out in the house. We're starting to get close to explaining what you're going to, or what you're seeing now. Again, the 1700s was the zeitgeist revolution, and a lot of change going on, a lot of new democracies, a lot of new countries developing after all the monarchies and the Napoleonic conflicts and all that. So it was a big, that was a century revolution from 1700 to 1800. Pretty much no new architecture, just copies of old, picturesque ideas of the old. Associationalism is one of the words they use in the book. Your associations with the past, but not exact copies. Eclectic, like the picture up there. Mix of styles. Trying to find certain styles that bring back certain associations, but also fit the function of buildings. Because from 1800 to 1900 is the zeitgeist growth. A lot of growth in cities especially. A lot of growth in industry. So there's industrial uses now in the cities. The cities are starting to have manufacturing and industrial uses in the cities. Therefore, jobs in the city. Therefore, more populations in the city. A lot of American cities like New York and Chicago from 1800 to 1900 grew exponentially in population. They said something like in the book in Chicago there was like 12,000 people in 1800, and in 1900 it was over a million. So things were growing really fast. New technologies in 1800 to 1900 are starting to develop, especially the train, manufacturing of iron, cast iron, wrought iron. More and more uses and understanding of that type of metal. I mean, the train station was important, but now we have this population in the cities that are growing. Buildings of bigger size are necessary than the temple or the church or the whatever. Size of these buildings. How do we hold all these people? Where do we put them all? Okay? So it's a purification from the Baroque, but the classical styles of Roman and Greek are good in a lot of ways. Also Gothic. There's a lot of use for the Gothic. Again, most of the classical Greek and Roman were for public buildings or political buildings or buildings for government because of the representation of democracy, republic, and the Gothic style was used for churches and schools. Again, Gothic is a high time of the church, so reusing for Gothic revival in the 1700s and 1800s for a church, or 1900s too, for a church made sense. Also for schools, because way back in the monastery age, the schools were connected to those Catholic churches. So Gothic for a school seemed okay. So you have this revivalism with eclecticism. That building up there, as one very smart young man noticed, it was a mix of Greek and Renaissance. train station, something that big in Greek and Roman. Those styles just don't fit. So what style of architecture should it be? It's not, a temple's not going to work out, it's not making sense. But what's starting to happen is the understanding of metals, like iron and steel, a lot of iron. They're starting to try to design these bigger spaces. And it really doesn't have an architectural style to it. It's just function. It's just function. So that is, here you have this eclecticism, all these different styles kind of mixed together, then you've got a building that doesn't fit in. Sorry, this is a poor picture, but this comes right out of your book. It's the Crystal Palace in England, built around 1850. Says 1851. The reason we don't have real pictures of it is because it's gone. But this is it, and you're probably thinking, well, why am I showing this building? This building, John Patton, the architect, you don't have to know. Sir Joseph Patton, sorry, Joseph Patton. I'm going to try to talk about why this is important. He was challenged to design this large structure in England to celebrate technology, celebrate new technology. And it was kind of for a World's Fair kind of deal. It was supposed to be temporary. So he said, I gotta build this great big like mall, and it's going to get on celebrating new technology. So Greek and Roman, for a couple reasons, doesn't make sense because that's not celebrating new technology, and it's way too big for those styles. But what this John Paston had learned from his own investigation and seen some other architects, greenhouses were starting to be built all over England for crops, and to keep crops all year round and all that. He watched how they built the greenhouses, and he realized what they did was a series of repetitive parts. They make a piece and then just repeat that piece. Because now manufacturing is starting to get in that, I'm going to call it assembly line mode, or you can do repeated pieces by machines. The machines now can say, okay, I can make 1,000 of these pieces that look like this funny arm on. I can make 1,000 of them, just bang, 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 bang. It's not handmade anymore. So just the same as that picture you saw prior to that, those are the same pieces over and over and over. Design one, build a bunch of them with machines. But Paxton really celebrated the Crystal Palace by, you can see, I know it's not a good picture, but see how big that building is on the top side? The bottom one's kind of a section between the two. It was big enough to grow trees inside. And he had designed this thing with repetitive pieces, like a greenhouse, but a gargantuan greenhouse. It was metal and glass. And just repeated. So I know it's hard to see, I wish I had better pieces, but it's a whole series of repeated metal pieces with glass in between, and all were standardized. This is critical, key for what's about to happen in the next 50 to 100 years. What about a building like that? Machine-made repetitive pieces. You know you see it all across campus now. You see windows, or mullions, or curtain wall, or brick that are manufactured over and over and over again, repeated pieces. He took this to the nth degree and taught architects, hey, with technology, I can design one piece and use it 1,000,000 times over and over again. And I can get one piece of glass and do it over and over and over again to fit in the exact same space in the building. there actually is a Baroque revival. Not in this country, but over in Europe. Because again, Americans don't like Baroque. It's monarchies. But in Europe, they're still here. And there's something called Second Empire Baroque. And I just want to show you this. You know, you've seen houses in Savannah, Georgia, or something like that might pick up a little of this. But not any of the public buildings. Second Empire Baroque came from Napoleon's nephew. Napoleon's nephew basically declared himself emperor again. And so it's the Second Empire. His uncle was the first one. Napoleon's nephew was the Second Empire in France, and they decided to have a brand new style called Second Empire based on Napoleon's nephew, because he said so on Second Empire, and Second Empire in France. And notice it is Baroque-ish because it's got a lot of repeated pieces, a lot of excess, a lot of over-the-top, more than you need decoration. Of course it fits Napoleon's nephew. He's another monarch. It fits him perfectly. But it doesn't fit this country. So there is a revival of the Baroque even in Europe. Remember, 95% European. Of course, this country always looks to Europe, right? It's still, right? Women look to French designers on the red carpet to get their dress from who knows where. We still do that. Again, Second Empire Baroque. If I ask on the exam I might, if you just say Baroque revival, you'll get credit for it. It's pretty much what they call it, Second Empire Baroque, because of Napoleon that. Second Empire, Napoleon. Make sense to you? Look Baroque to you? I mean, I hope you can try to spot that kind of thing now. There's no holes, really, but there's a sure lot of access, a lot of decoration, a lot of over the top, complexity that really doesn't need to happen. It's not the Opera House in Paris. There's also something called High Victorian Gothic. It's a Gothic revival, but we call it High Victorian Gothic. Victorian is based on Queen Victoria. So when you hear Victorian architecture, I know you've heard it. It's coming from this. Oh, that house is Victorian, somebody will say. Well, it's basically coming from a reference to High Victorian Gothic. You can see the Gothic in it, right? You can see the rose windows. You can see the pointed arches. Not too many blind buttresses anymore. Technology's been able to eliminate those. But look for the rose windows. Look for the pointed arches. High Victorian Gothic. So this High Victorian Gothic got truncated to be called Victorian in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Came from Queen Victoria. Queen Victorian, High Victorian Gothic again starts in Europe. Now, I want those two slides to stick in your head because you're going to see houses when you travel this country that have remnants of these. And most of them were built 1880 to 1920. Something's that really changed. So that's where some of those styles come. You see Queen Anne. You've heard the Queen Anne style is coming from a mix of that Second Empire Baroque and High Victorian Gothic that get mixed together. You've heard that Queen Anne era. got a fair amount of bucks, and he's running a factory, but he shouldn't want to live there. It's nasty. So where does he move? He wants out of the city. First suburbs. I'm not living in this nasty, stinking city. I'm moving out to the country. A new style. Country style. It's called the arts and crafts. The arts and crafts. Write that one down. The arts and crafts. I love arts and crafts. Well, probably didn't show too much. So I'm going to show you. I believe it's the beginning of the suburbs. People start moving to the outskirts, they start moving outside of town. But they do not want their architecture to be what caused the cities to be polluted. Now think about this. What has caused the pollution in the cities? Manufacturing. Industry. Machine-made stuff has polluted my city. Because when they make textiles, there's a byproduct that goes to the water. When they make steel, smoke comes out. And nasty acids in the air, CO2. So machine-made starts to become like an association of dirty and grimy and disgusting. And so when I move out to the country, they don't want machine-made. Handmade. Back to craftsmanship. Arts and crafts. Back to craftsmanship. The guy just putting the brick in there with the mortar. Putting the stucco on. With a trowel. No machines. Wood. Natural material. Stone. Natural material. And the pieces are all different sizes. Look at some of the pieces around the window. They don't have to be the same. That's rustication. That's natural. Let's go with that. And we're going to make it white even. Clean. Fresh. Trees around it. And it really started in England. The arts and crafts really started in England. Philip Webb, William Morris, a couple architects. Boise. If you really like arts and crafts, you got to get a book. You'll see all these guys. I like CFA Boise, man. He did really cool stuff. William Morris. I have a couple books on him. But I think it's really relevant because it does happen here that sooner or later that we start our own suburbs. So the arts and crafts started there. There's also a guy named John Ruskin. Write down that name. Most of the time, I don't make you remember names. He wrote a book called The Seven Lamps. Lamp like a light. 7 lamps of architecture. Philip Ruskin, I'm going to read you the 7 lamps, wrote these 7 things that he thinks are critical for good architecture. And the book is a big book, but he boiled it down to 7 sentences. Architecture should functionally have functionally expressive ornament. Sorry about that. Functionally expressive ornament. Now what that means, if I have a decorative gargoyle on my building, it should have a function, not just decorative. So that gargoyle could be a downspout. If I could draw it, I would. The gargoyle could be a downspout. The ornament has a function. It's just not there to be pretty. It has a function. It might be a decorative thing on the roof that keeps the snow from landing in the gutter. It's decorative, but functional. Functional, expressive ornament. Number 2, truth in expression of building materials and structure. Truth in the expression of building materials and structure. Truth. I write it down, but I can't. Truth in the expression of building materials and structure. What do you mean? Wood should look like wood. Stone should look like stone. He would hate this if it's plastic laminate, which it might not be, and it looks like wood. That's not right. Wood should look like wood. You don't make stone look like wood or wood look like brick. So the materials should be truthful in their expression, and so should the structure. You don't put fake columns in that don't do anything. They don't have a purpose, they're just there for decorating. Expressive massing, number 3. Expressive massing. What they mean is, if there's a big room inside like this big room should show itself on the outside somehow. It should express itself know that if that really big room's in the middle, it should pop up and show itself. Okay, expressive massing. Number 4, beauty is derived from the observation of nature. Beauty is derived from the observation of nature. I wonder why these are so important, because they go on to the next 100 years. So look at nature for what beauty is about. Remember we talked about beauty 2,000 years ago. What is beauty? Look at nature. There's something about nature that's just automatic. The texture of stone, the grain of the wood. Have you ever seen wood grain? It's just right, you know? We don't fake it. Bold and irregular forms. Bold and irregular forms. So they don't have to be regular or symmetrical anymore. Notice these. The symmetry starting to disappear. Bold and irregular forms. Number 5. Durable construction. Hey, it's got to stand up. It's got to last. You can't have these things. The Crystal Palace that I showed you was made for temporary. But they loved it so much they tore it down after the World's Fair was over and put it somewhere else, and it caught fire and burned down. So it should be durable. Well, duh. Shouldn't it be? I mean, I see architecture that's not. You see a CVS go up, you know that CVS is not built for 100 years. Your CVS store, it's not going to last 100 years. 50, 40 years from now, they know they're going to be going. You'll be getting all your drugs online. Drugs.com. A lot of buildings are like that. I've built buildings before, health clubs. I've done these health clubs. These guys, I know, 220 years from now, there's going to be. So it's cheap material. He doesn't agree with that. And last, adherence to traditional Christian architecture. Adherence to traditional Christian architecture. So what architecture side do you think he's talking? Look it up as you know. Yeah, what's your name?
Anthony.
What?
Awesome.
Say the last name.
Anthony Johnson.
Anthony Johnson. I don't remember that name. You've been getting them all right. Gothic. He thinks Gothic's the best. Of all the styles, he thinks Gothic's the best. Why? Because it was true. Remember, Gothic didn't copy any other style. Did it copy Roman? Did it copy Greek? Romanesque did. Renaissance did. Even Baroque. But Gothic was pure. It was his own style. And it was built by hand. And it took hundreds of years. And our hearts were in it, baby. Those people were building it later because they're going to heaven. I got to hurry back to heaven. I built this part of this church. See? It was pure and true in its own style. So if you had to sum up what Ruskin's looking for, is there a word or a sentence you can come up with when you look at those 7 things? That's a rhetorical question for now, but you need to say, if there's an underlying theme of those 7 things, you need to know what it is. And I want you to look at it for yourself first. Once you look at it for yourself, I will probably tell you the answer on Wednesday. Okay, you want to go for it now?
Well, no, I just think I think there's a fourth one.
Beauty derived from observation of nature. I summed it up myself as one word. That not every one are exactly, but like 5 or 6 out of 7 of those, I can come down to one word. And I want you to do that. That's your assignment for Wednesday. If you don't want to do it, don't. Probably tell you the answer anyway, but it might be more fun to do it. Yes?
What was the
6th
6th one?
one? Durable construction. Now these are right from the book. I sometimes, well, I just have to say durable. But he does, his favorite architecture is Gothic. Now, you got to understand, a lot of guys are reading this, and this guy didn't build much. But sometimes guys that don't build much but write profoundly have an extreme effect on architecture. And Ruskin did. Still does. We sometimes still look back to Ruskin, who wrote this, and I can't remember, in the late 1800s. We still look back to it. Every once in a while, I'll be talking about architecture with my professor when I was in school, and I said, that sounds like Ruskin. So, now we've got this. Let's review. We've got this eclectic styles, all kind of slamming together. you've got this whole bunch of new building types that are bigger, that don't really fit the classical style. You've got the slums, these dirty, crappy, ugly cities that are getting nasty. And now you're starting to get a new movement. The arts and crafts. Food and birds. Some more of it. Notice symmetry, not necessarily there. A lot of white and stucco. They felt like stucco was very natural and very handmade because it was troweled on. Wasn't put on by a machine. A lot of wood detail, copper, slate roofs, very natural material. Copper is a natural occurring material, so is slate. So is wood. You can see I'm a little bit obsessed with arts and crafts. But I want you to understand what arts and crafts is, because a lot of people miss this on the test. They get it mixed up with some of the other stuff we're not talking about. Okay? So the reason for arts and crafts is the slums of the cities, move away from it. Some of the writing, John Ruskin's writings are very connected to this. Okay, let me say it one more time. John Ruskin's writings are directly connected to this. Okay, go ahead.
So is this style called arts and crafts? It's not country style?
No, it's called arts and crafts. I was being kidding about it. Yeah, yes, I mean, is this called arts and crafts or country style? I was kidding about country style. It's arts and crafts. It's arts and crafts. It's no country. It's silly. Sorry. Country and way. It's arts and crafts. But this movement, again, English, mostly English, is going to affect us. In fact, I'll tell you now, my opinion is this is the origins of our suburbs. Now, our suburbs are a copy of this. Remember Ruskin said, look for nature for beauty? They have a lot of nature, a lot of trees, lawns, nice big pastures and lawns throughout the country. That's where our front lawns came from. A remnants to that. Our front lawns are really stupid if you think about it. It takes a whole lot of water and chemicals to keep them green. But it's this association to purity and nature and stuff that we like our front lawns. And they're not even natural. We put all kinds of different seeds in there to try to get this thing to grow right. And as a sustainable designer, grass that we grow is food. It's polluting our soil and it's tasting like water. So, think about what else is happening now in the United States in the late 1800s. Let's say 1875 to 1900. What is happening in our country? A lot of the big entrepreneurs are really making some big bucks. Right? You got the Rockefellers. You got the one group was the steel king, one group was the manufacturing king or whatever. I don't know my history there, but the Rockefeller was the silent king. What's the other one? Carnegie are making big sums of money with this manufacturing. Big sums of money. A lot of new inventions. You're getting the light bulb. You're getting the telegraph. You're getting those things that become invented in the late 1800s. The elevator, write it down, is invented in 1880 something, 1870 something. Machines, here they are, more and more of them. Now we can actually light a building with electricity. I mean, we don't know it, but before that, candle. You know? Is that a source of a fire? Oh, no. A lot of things burn down because of candles. All you have to do is knock one over, right? So you're having, let me make sure I'm not missing something. A new industrialism, standardized fabricated parts, available iron. Iron and steel, it always sounds like it's one, but the properties of iron and steel keep improving. And at first you had certain kind of irons, wrought irons are very brittle. Then you got cast irons a little bit better. Then you have another mix and another mix. Finally you're getting early steel. Now our steel now is we can make steel really strong. But it took a while. Because for a while there, we had that much steel in holding these buildings up. Most of these buildings are held up with masonry and wood. Wood trusses, big fat masonry walls, big fat masonry walls. If your masonry wall was 100 feet tall, by the time you get to the bottom, it's pretty big. You know, if you go to Chicago, anybody been to Chicago? Anybody seen the Monadnock building? Probably not, so you don't care. The Monadnock building is one of the earlier skyscrapers. The walls are all masonry and they're 6 10 stories. By the time you get to the bottom, the masonry wall's 6 foot thick. You know how thick my masonry walls are? Now, 12 inches. Because there's steel reinforcing all in there. I don't need it all. So now iron and steel are starting to be developed. Okay, the book says the greatest limitation to historical style. Historical style. The greatest limitation to historical style was the growing demand for large public buildings. Okay? The growing demand for large public buildings limits the use of historical style because those styles don't fit. They become eclectic. They look stupid. The temple can't be a Carnegie Hall. You can't do it in the Greek temple. So big things are getting building bigger. Okay, I went by memory now. I'm going to go back and repeat some stuff a little bit just to get more detail. Urban growth, unorganized with grim results. Poor water and sewage, dirt, smog, built housing for factory workers, iron and steel production increased, mass production of many common items was now possible. Okay, that's leading up to arts and crafts. Also, the arts and crafts, one thing that affected this was vernacular. You know what the word vernacular means? Vernacular means the common style of the area. The vernacular in northeastern Ohio looks different than the vernacular in Arizona. Okay? So, you gotta remember there's this architectural high end, like the educated architects all through history are the ones that doing all the studying and building the really profound buildings. But in the background, the common man building a regular little house. Regular little thing. And vernacular styles start to happen. When I mean the common style of the area in reaction to snow, wind, environment, available materials, how much craftsmanship the common man can have, the own vernacular style starts to happen. If you go to Switzerland, you see a different style than you go to Germany. If you go to England, you see a different style than you go to France. And again, in this country, if you go out to Arizona, the houses look totally different. How? Response to environment. Response to influence by the Spanish too. The Spanish influenced them down there. We're up in England, England and New England, England and France and Germany affected New England housing. So there's a different influence historically, different groups that came in there. And that affects it, and then you respond to the environment. Okay? So understand what vernacular means. So I'm going to use it and I'm going to ask it on exam. Because vernacular has impact. The common man's architecture, the guy that's doing the regular old thing, might have an impact on what the big shot architects do. We might modify his design a little bit to respond to English vernacular. Alright. The reason I'm bringing up the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, and the Cyberlings and all those, in the late 1800s, there's a lot of money. Certain folks. You take those rich guys, and they want fancy houses. They want, again, I got lots of money, I want something fancy, something unique, might be in the country, but I want it all. So these houses, what I call, are called eclectic. Because if you look at them, what style are they? You can see Second Empire Baroque. You can see Heidelberg Gothic. On the one in the middle, upper middle, you can see a little Greek reference in that middle pediment. You can get all these mixes in there. You don't see it, look at it and ask me questions. Look at the multiple columns when you don't need them. Look at the excess. There's a Baroque reference there. I know there's no ovals, but there's excess. There's more than you should be there. This excess, you have to hear that word on, is going to influence the architecture that's coming. You know what's coming. Holy crap. Now the pink one, my favorite. And the one on the bottom left, the Wright house, and the one on the top is by Frank Furness, which is a lovely building. What is that man doing? It's so bad it's good in my mind. It's so bad it's good. You ever hear that before? It's one of my favorite styles. Sometimes a movie's so bad that it's hilarious. It's funny. That's pretty bad that it's good. In fact, Frank Furness, you can see some dominant influences in there. You see the point of the art. But there's just, what is it? There's all kinds of stuff in there. I love Frank Furness. He's a footnote, but I like him. Because he made us realize, where are we going? We can go forever and really don't understand what that's supposed to be. And he distorted scale. He started to distort scale. And I think one of the reasons Frank Furness became known to me is because I was a postmodernist, and you'll find out what that is. And Frank Furness might have had an influence on postmodern architecture. You will know what a postmodern architecture is before you leave. And here it is, folks, the pinnacle of it all. It's a house. Are you shitting me? Now it's a hotel, but it was a house at first. Now, there are some things. The guy who owned this house was in the wood manufacturing business, so he had wood at his disposal and all kind of arsons to make all this. But is this really what architecture is supposed to be? The rich guys get it all, and the poor guys live in the factories in the city? The rich guys get this, and they flaunt it in front of the guy making 80 cents a day in a smelly, stinky, polluted city? Like is that all through the history of the world? You have the people say, we're the 99%. Why does the 1% have most of the wealth? That scares us. They can start influencing elections and all kinds of things. And this is where it gets to the pinnacle of excess. The pinnacle of excess. Cost per effect. A big change in the house. Now first, we're turning into 20th century. We're turning the corner. It's 1901. In the early 20th century, okay, we said 1700 to 1800, zeitgeist, revolution. 1800 to 1900, zeitgeist, growth. 1900 to 2000, zeitgeist. Anybody? Century is the machine. Rage Against the Machine. Isn't there a bad name then? I love that name of the band. I don't think I like this music, but I love that name. The Machine. The zeitgeist of the 20th century is the machine. We won, well, we won World War II. Real early in the 20th century, you get the automobile. Right? And everybody thinks Henry Ford invented the automobile, but he really didn't. Henry Ford figured out a way to mass produce the automobile. He invented the assembly line. The assembly line, write that down. Assembly line, write it down. I'll go back to it later. Also, not too much later, those Wright brothers from this funky state called Ohio figured out how to fly. Car and the plane. We already got the trains. They're kicking it out of the notch. But now we got the automobile and we got the airplane. Keep that down, put it on the side note. We also have some architecture saying, now wait. We need a new American architecture. We need a new American architecture. A lot this is one of my slides. One of my slides, when I said pick the favorite house, no one picked this but Connor. I know why Connor picked it. He's an architecture major. He knows how much influence this has. But no one else really likes it anymore. He knew. He couldn't help himself. I couldn't either. You gotta pick this one. But why? It's not that great. You guys didn't think so. I don't know. Good old Frankie here. Now, Frank's a very complicated guy. We could have a whole class on Frank for quite a few times. He first worked for Sullivan, who you're going to know. By the way, one of the 10 architects you need to know is Frank Lloyd Wright. Just put a little star by his name now. We'll go over it again. One of the 10 you're going to know. We talked about Thomas Jefferson, that's one. Frank Lloyd Wright, number 2. And Louis Sullivan, number 3. Louis Sullivan, Frank Lloyd Wright worked for Louis Sullivan for a while and started a deal. But I put him ahead of Louis Sullivan because I want the connection to the housing or the residential. Frank said, a new architecture for America. So what's the biggest thing America's got? What's the biggest thing in mind America has that Europe doesn't have? Size. We're huge. 3,000 miles coast to coast. Go to Europe. It's like you can go for miles. You can go 700 miles and go through 4 countries. We have the prairies. Connor knows where I'm going. We have big, vast prairies. You can look for miles and see nothing but corn until you can't see no more. So why not let our buildings spread out? Why are they going up and let's spread them out. Let's match the prairie. And the prairie is very horizontal. My building's going to be horizontal. I don't have land problems. I go wherever I want. I can spread this maybe out. Let's do that. First and foremost, horizontal prairie, horizontal architecture. Big land, spread this thing out. He said. Notice what style is he copying, you guys? Nobody's. Nobody. Yeah. Finally, a true American architecture. Put your flag out today, first day of spring, and new American architecture. Good old Frank. There's really no style there. But here's the key to Frank, and most people don't know. He digs the arts and crafts, but he also digs the machine. I'm going to say that again. The difference between is I get the arts and crafts. I like that. I think it should be pure, clean. It should be good, but the machine can help us. I'll take both. So I asked that question. You're going to know the answer. He accepts arts and crafts and the machine. The guys in England, no machine. Frank says, hey, it's here, let's use it. So I can have repeated bricks. I can have repeated pieces. But I still want a craftsmanship. I still want that craftsmanship. I still want it done put together well. And I like natural materials. I like stone. I like brick. We're putting out clay, shale. But it could be, you can have repetitive pieces. Also, good old Frank says, I'm going to design everything. Oh, no. Everything. Your flower pots on the outside, or the sun shelf, the furniture on the inside, I'm designing it. And guess what? It's nailed down. You can't move it. Because I am so good at this, it's got to be here. He's the master architect, or the master of the works. It all goes together. The one thing about Frank, he was influenced by the Japanese. What? Where'd those guys come from, man? We talked about Asian architecture for 2,000 years. He got influenced by the Japanese. Some of the Soji screens, some of the screens, and the dark wood that they use. You ever seen some Japanese architects that have that kind of translucent paper or whatever, and they have that dark wood, and they slide open, and opens big rooms. So Frank, in my opinion, write this down for extra credit, invented the ranch style house. Before, right, there were no ranch houses. One story. There wasn't any. Did you see any yet? No. But what you need to know about Frank, it doesn't look that obvious here, but it's a big deal. If you go to any house, if you go to an old house built between 1890 and through another door to get to another, and they're all separate rooms. And you go to those old houses, and it's not the style we live in anymore. They get this great woodwork, and they get this great craftsmanship and detail, but it's a room and a room and a room, and doors separating every room. Today's style, we open our houses up, don't we? I want my kitchen open, my family room open, the dining room, make the house bigger, and we can see everything. Frank was the first to do that. He was the first to open up the house. Where are the doors? It doesn't look that open, but he's beginning to open things up to each other. To you, it looks like not much, but it's a big deal. He starts opening up the floor plan, starts opening the floor rooms to each other with less doors. He also starts opening it up to the exterior. He starts extending the house to include exteriors. I'm going to go back to that last slide. See the big overhangs on the roofs? He's trying to partially enclose exterior space. He's trying to say, look, that flying roof over that patio is an interior-exterior room. It's not exterior, it's not interior, it's a little bit of both. And he's really extending those, really kind of stretching the interior and the exterior of the house together. And the glass between those rooms often makes it feel like the room inside is bigger. So that's our old frame. So this begins to change. Now, there is no copy of an old style. Concurrently, with Frank is Louis Sullivan. Louis Sullivan. Good old Louis, what do you think he's known for by the pictures? What do you think Louis is known for by the pictures? Okay? Possibly the first skyscraper, correct. Not really skyscrapers, we call them high-rise nowadays because they're not really straight skyscrapers. Louis Sullivan realized now, with the invention of two things, you got to write these down, with the invention of two things, or the development of iron and steel, and the invention of the elevator allows high-rise buildings. We call them skyscrapers when they're really tall, but these are what, 10 stories, 15 maybe? And Louis Sullivan finally said, look, we can go tall. We have an elevator. You know, most of us don't want to walk more than about 3 or 4 stories before we're tired. Without an elevator, this doesn't happen. So, early reasons for the development of the high-rise are the development of iron and steel and an elevator. That's your answer for your exam if you see it. Okay? But Sullivan, the one on the left, is pretty traditional. It's brick. It's not any fancy material. And what he does first is traditionally what everybody else does. Well, we got a tall building. We want to make it out of masonry, brick and block. And if it's that tall, it's going to be pretty fat on the bottom. My walls are going to be 3, 4 feet thick, whatever I need. But he also is non-traditional in his use of ornament. He has ornament on it, but not Greek, not Roman, not Baroque, his own. And what did Ruskin say? Look to nature for beauty. So it was organic. It was like leaves, and branches and stuff. I'll show you the beauty. But here's what happened to Sullivan. Sullivan built, was it Sullivan? I don't think it was Sullivan. I think it was Adler. Anyway, not Adler. Okay, I took that back. In Chicago, this is all happening. Chicago was growing like crazy. They're doing a high-rise building. That's what's really cool about Chicago if you're an architect. You want the history of the high-rise? Go to Chicago. Burnham and Root, Adler and Sullivan. All these other guys are designing high-rises in Chicago. The first ones. And they started out, I forget which architects had this problem, making it all masonry. But there became a mason strike. The masons went on strike, and the architect designing it, God, I have to read that name, because I can't remember which one it was. Designing the building said, now what am I going to do? I can't build it out of masonry, because there's a strike, but I got to get this building done. So what do you do? What if I made the whole thing out of steel? What if I made the support frame for this building out of steel? Sounds weird to you guys, but this is new. A steel frame. Hey, can I do that? Can I do a steel frame? Yeah. The first steel frame building in Chicago. It became the Chicago style too. It became a style. It started. The frame started to dedicate where the windows went. So he started to frame buildings. The architects in Chicago started to frame buildings out of steel. Makes the walls much thinner, makes the weight much less, allows them much more options. So the one on the left turned into one on the right. Now I don't need automation, I can use other material. It's like a steel frame building. But Sullivan also came up with like 3 stages of skyscraper, because no one's done high rise. So what should it look like? Sullivan's going, I have no precedent. What should a high rise look like? Well, here he figures base, middle, top. You have 3 levels. Base, middle, top. That are all separated. A column, a classical Greek column, has a base, a middle, and a top. Some people said if you just took that corner of that building and separated around away, it would look like a classic column. Base, middle, top. Base, retail. That's where the people walk along the street. Middle, offices. Tops, where all the utilities are, where the mechanical equipment is, and the elevator penthouse. And it kind of put a crown on it. Look how we put a crown on the top. Something to finish it. A crowning cornice. It's called a cornice. But this one, the cornice disappears. You still got a base in the middle, but the top is really subtle. He's getting more and more, what I call modern, more and more away from tradition. Now we're talking about 1898, 1896, if you like dates. Oops, wrong button. That's also Sullivan. Notice the reason I showed this base, middle, top again on that building. Notice the detail on the right. You never saw that kind of ornament before. Right? He made his own. Now stay with me. We've got 2 guys. We've got Sullivan, who's doing his news. He's doing a whole new American type of building, the high rise. No one has ever done it. American, baby. Wright works for Sullivan, saying, hey, there's a whole new American thing going on. He goes on his own, he says a whole new American art. These 2 guys set the stage for pure American architecture. Now, it sounds weird, but our country's only been here about 125 years by then. Well, 1776 to 1900? It was 125 years to get our architecture. That's not hard, that's not long. We were talking about centuries and centuries in the past, right? But it's organic. His architecture is leaves and scrolling and just patterns based on nature. And it's all called terracotta. Anybody ever heard of that? Terracotta is a clay product. You can mold it in almost any shape. So it's made out of clay like brick. You can paint it and all that stuff. Sometimes you put a glaze on it. Oop. I show this building. Another building in the early 20th century called the Flatiron. I can't remember who designed it. You remember who designed it? I can't remember. I don't care about names. Too many names for you to memorize. I don't want to bore you with them anyway. It has a base middle top, also doesn't it? And if you look right at the end of that, squint and look at the end of that building, just the rounded end, does it look like a column kind of sort of? Like a Greek column? Base, middle, top. I know it's pretty metaphorical, but it's there. But I want you to understand too, this building is famous. Famous. Why? Anybody know? I don't know. Honky shape. It's a shape like that. They call it the Flatiron. You know why? It looks like an iron in plan. You know the iron you use on your ironing board? It looks like an iron in plan. So, well, that's cool.
is when I came over, this guy right here got a lot of money, because I bought this site really cheap on the corner of Main and 7th Street. But it's a triangular shape. It's a triangular shaped lot. I got it for a song. He goes to the first architect, he goes, I can't build on that. He goes to the next architect, he goes, I can't build on that. Comes to you and says, oh, I can do it. I'll make my building shape like the site. A building shape like that. And it's really cool. I want that one. I want the ear on the top of around there. I want that one. So what I'm trying to say is these architects now are really responding to urban sites. The shape and size. Go ahead. Mostly office. Yeah, the room would be really small. Now, we don't know scale, but the end of the room, but you're gonna remember is expanding out. But that end room might be small, but I still want that office. I think that's where the CEO should be, right? Mostly offices, probably originally was retail a lot. You see the doors on the bottom of the wall, you see the shops. There are a bunch of offices, and usually the top is where all mechanical equipment. Now, today's day and age, we don't put mechanical equipment there. That's the kind of real estate. So there's probably some up there, but right up on the top, they get all their mechanical equipment on. Because an elevator has to have a penthouse, lift it up, so there's got to be stuff up there anyway. So I just want you to understand that architecture is changing to be very urban. And very urban is big cities. And style of these buildings doesn't really match anything historical that we've seen up till now. Building on the left, what style? I don't know. It really isn't. Often called Chicago style because the way the architecture developed in Chicago based on the steel frame and the spacing of the windows became called Chicago style. You don't need to remember that. But the building, the thing on the lower right was the Chicago Exposition of 1893. The one on the lower right is the Chicago Exposition of 1893. And they wanted to put they hired all these famous architects to design buildings. What the hell happened? We're back in classical again. This was the Chicago Exposition of 1893. It was like a World's Fair. What styles do you see? You start to see Renaissance, Revivalism. You start to see this real classic kind of Roman Greek montage. You see some Gothic over here. What happened from that to that? It's not dead yet. Those old styles aren't dead yet. They're still raising their heads. They're still there. They're still saying, what happened to all this cool classical architecture? Why are we doing this? This is awesome. Is it awesome? Some guys are thinking no. Some guys are thinking yes. Maybe we should stay with it. I'll look at my notes real quick, make sure I didn't forget anything. Okay, at this point, Greek and Roman classicism was the U.S. national style. Greek and Roman classicism. Classicism is the U.S. style. Even though Wright's doing his thing, Sullivan's doing everything, you can't break away from that Greek and Roman architecture. A little bit ahead of myself, but I'm going to go for it. Let's say it's 1910. Our economy is busting loose. We got tons of money. We got tons of industry. We've got a lot of successful guys doing great houses. 1910. What happens in 1914? Anybody? Historians out there?
World War I.
World War I. Now we got one guy. World War I starts in 1914. Francis Ferdinand or whatever, King of Austria or something, gets shot. Triggers this thing that was going to happen anyway, and World War I started. We've never had a world war before. The entire world is engulfed in war. changes things. We don't get involved till 1917. But Europe is devastating. I mean, a lot of us don't know a lot about World War I. I know a little because I like war history, World War I and II history. Europe was devastated. They lost thousands of guys for 100 yards. Trench warfare. The machine gun was invented. Another machine that the old style of let's just chase with our bayonets, they mowed them down by the thousands. Up and over those things and they destroyed. It was insane. The economies of Europe collapsed. The war, the reason the Germans and the Austrians lost, they ran out of money. And finally, when the U.S. came over in 1917, that was the final straw. We brought all our equipment, all our money, all our men, and put the hammer down and finished it. Europe was devastated. The United States, we ain't happy either. We lost a lot. And so many guys got gassed and were crippled because we didn't have the technology to fix it. We realized he was gassed. My grandfather was gassed in World War I. He was never the same. So, I'm going to give you this morbid story. Everything changes. World War I tells us Europe and the European reference, we don't want it. We don't want it. We don't want to think about that. It was a horrific event. Now, finally, historical style, many philosophers and architects and thinkers are saying no, more of that. Also, 10 years after World War I is completed, by the way, the Treaty of Versailles was screwed up, we call it World War II. The country had broken up unfairly, many thought, and there's a mess, and in 1929, the stock market crashed. So, right now, World War I and the stock market crash that kicked off a new architecture. And the new architecture is called the International Style. The International Style. And I want that to soak in because so many buildings that you look at now are still based on the international style. Kind of international sounds kind of arrogant, doesn't it? My favorite slide of all time. It's not even English. If you get this one, you'll get the international style. What I get from this slide is, you see the building on the top. Look like anything familiar? I don't know. I think that's what it is. Then you see a picture on the bottom. What is it? Everybody knows it's a car. What the international style guys began to say was for 200 years, or how many years, our architecture was based on the one on the top. People miss this on my exams. Don't miss this. For 200 years, or 150 years, or whatever time, our architecture was based on the one on the top. What I mean by historical reference. It's invalid in 1920. Our architecture should be based on this. By the way, it says 1921, so I was just looking at my date. What do I mean based on that? What does that mean? What do I mean when it should be based on the car? Anybody? Anybody want to tell me out? It should be based on the car. Should it look like a car? Should be able to move it? Go ahead. You think it should be curved with full better? That's Art Deco. You're right, but that's not what I'm going. That's Art Deco. It's a spin-off. Not bad. Not going to ask the architect. Go ahead.
It should accommodate the other building.
Okay, that's good too, but that's further down the road. Go ahead.
The world is different now, so it should really adapt to modern technology. Modern.
should become adapt to modern technology. What did I say the zeitgeist was? A machine. Wait a minute. Let's talk about this thing right here. What Henry Ford did so geniusly, is that word? You make 10,000 a year and you make 100,000 a year, but you both can afford a car. Why? It's on the assembly line. And if I can build 1,000 of them a day, I can build them cheap. This is really cool stuff, so stay with us. Because I'm going to the bank today. You can build 1,000 of them a day so everybody can handle them. Everybody, not just those rich guys, not just Carnegie, not just Cyberlink, not just Rockefeller. Everybody in this room, rich or poor, can get one of those. How about buildings that everybody can have? How about, no wait a minute, the way they make this for everybody was the assembly line. Could we do buildings like that? Can we do good architecture in an assembly-like fashion? Because we know we did it with the Crystal Palace. That everybody can enjoy, not just the rich guys, the poor guys. Not just the guys in the country, but the guys living in the city. And guess what? What style is this car? No style. No style. So, the age of the machine. Think of the building as a machine. Think of a building built like a machine for everyone. So what style should that building be? We don't know yet. But it's not going to be any of the historical style. What would be a good style? Where are cars made? In a school? In a church? No, they're made in a what? Huh? A factory. So should the factory be our influence?